Well, before we begin, we'd like to start by acknowledging that we are fortunate to be able to gather on the unceded territory of the Coast Salish people. Welcome to the Cannabis Conference and Expo here from sunny Vancouver. My name is Shane Christopher Neal. I am the speaker facilitator, and just a briefing on Logan's stats. Amazing, by the way. Born on the Six Nations Reserve and raised in the small ghost town of Brantford, Ontario, Logan started writing and performing music in his early teens. From a young age, Logan's haunting and distinct voice has won him multiple opportunities to share the stage with many great artists. Stats was chosen out of 10,000 applicants to be featured on the inaugural season of The Launch. His song, The Lucky Ones, topped the Canadian charts as the #1 song in the country the day after its release. Thank you once again for an amazing rendition of our national anthem. Well, conferences like this can't happen without an advisory board, and we have some real important people to mention, so I'm just going to take a moment and let you know who's on that board. Alex Revich, Dr. Av Singh, Barinder Rasood, Cheryl Schumann, Danielle Sachs, Deepak Anand, Dr. Bridget Simons, Jamie Shaw, Jay Rosenthal, Jeanette Vandermeer, Kevin Hall, Samantha Roman, Selena Jane Eckersall, and Shannon Claude. So put your hands together for the advisory board. We have 2 awesome days coming up. We've got a short video, and you can check it out for yourself and see how awesome this event's going to be.
Welcome to Cannabis 2018, presented by MNP. Cannabis is a gathering of the people putting Canada on the worldwide marijuana industry map and creating momentum in a new uncharted marketplace. We're bringing together everyone with an interest in cannabis. Patients, physicians, producers, investors, suppliers of recreational products, and you. You are why Cannabis exists. And your interest is being served in every session, panel, and keynote speech. Today, we've got movers and shakers like Cam Battley, CCO, Aurora Cannabis, Krishna Ondevalu, producer, Weed Etiquette, Vice Media, and Montel Williams, actor, TV, radio personality, and founder of the MS Foundation. Let's get started.
Well, it's a real privilege to bring this next gentleman to the stage. He is going to be your master of ceremonies. His name is Tony Chapman. And Tony is one of the youngest members to be inducted into the Marketing Hall of Legends, testament to a career where he founded and built 2 internationally renowned communications agencies and co-founded a research firm. 5 years ago, he sold all of his interests to freely speak his mind in the media and at conferences around the world, such as this one. Tony does weekly segments on global television, Bloomberg, BNN, and across Bell radio networks. Vancouver, please welcome Tony Chapman.
Good morning, everybody. You know, I'm a student of history, and there's times where the world changes, it pivots. Sometimes it's uncontrollable forces, sometimes it's controllable, but they collide together, and when they do, massive transformation happens. I want to take you back to the 1930s for a moment to draw this parallel. Imagine that this was the House of Parliament in England. Now, you've got a lowly backbencher sitting at the very back, out of favor by both political parties. His name's Winston Churchill. Some say he was out of favor because of his naval record in World War I, others because he was boorish and brash. And more often than not, people didn't like the fact that he wrote articles for American magazines. But what Churchill had was vision. He didn't stay in the present, he didn't stay with status quo. He looked beyond. He looked around the world. He saw brown shirts forming in Germany, and communism happening in Russia, fascism in Italy, Japan's thirst for new resources, America becoming the new superpower. And every day he would look at his prime minister and wonder why he stood in this mud of status quo. One day Churchill stood up and he looked and he waited till everybody's eyes were on him. He looked until he had everybody's attention, and then he looked right at the prime minister and said, "History will prove that this honorable prime minister is wrong in these matters. for I know it is so, because I will write the history. And they say at that point, Churchill grabbed the rudder and led England through its greatest battles. And in many ways, I wonder about the history we're writing today. This is, without question, going to be the largest product launch globally that the world has ever seen. Recreationally and medical, and we're only beginning to touch on the medical properties. And the first chapter we know of Canada is a great chapter. First mover advantage. We jumped ahead of the train. We feel great swagger and pride with this. But I wonder what the second and third chapters will be. Will we be creating the next Coca-Colas and Budweisers in the consumer space, massive global brands, the Tylenols and Viagras in the medical space? Brands that are so important and powerful that people demand them? Will we find a way to harness a wave of agriculture and science and IP and patents? Will we bring this all together with this collective energy? Will our grandkids look back and say at this time, we're so glad you were alive at this point because you are part of the new economy that's defining Canada? Will that be our history, or will we be a footnote? Will we be a footnote because more capitalist-oriented countries, South Korea, China, the United States, Israel, they're all going to have the same insatiable appetite that we do? I can only hope with conferences like this, where we come for our own speed, our self-interest, but also put our collective interest together to say that this is a sector that belongs, that will define Canada going forward. And that's what this conference is all about, and we welcome you to this conference. Conferences like this couldn't happen without sponsors. And I'm going to introduce MNP, Peter Go, to come to the stage in a minute. I want to tell you, this is a company that's gone full on into this whole cannabis space. You can see it, by the way, they've got a booth, they're sponsoring a seminar, obviously a major underwriter of this event. But they're here from the board down. They believe in this, they believe in Canada. Ladies and gentlemen, Peter Go.
Sitting in the front row, I thought I'd just hop up on the stage, but I passed a certain decade where the neurons do kick in and kind of go, you know, do I want to do that? And then sit back later this afternoon in reviewing sort of the video and going, gee, that seemed like a good idea at the time, or perhaps take the path a little better chosen. Anyways, I wanted to welcome all of you to this year's Cannabis conference, being the first Cannabis conference in Vancouver. Now I'm going to start with this. I'm going to say, ladies and gentlemen, business partners, friends, interested onlookers. And why do I put it in that way? Well, obviously, ladies and gentlemen. But why business partners and friends and interested onlookers? What Tony said is true. We've been involved with the industry, with Cannabis right from day one. This is our third Cannabis that we have sponsored in a major, major way. And the reason why I say business partners and friends is because I look out at the audience. I look at what we were doing yesterday, walking the hallways, in the medicine component of the conference, talking to all of you. And it does feel like business partners and friends. We know so many of you know so many of us. Just to indicate our commitment to this industry, we didn't get involved because all of a sudden, you know, we saw a bunch of headlines, decided to put some pretty images on it, and relaunch those as media sort of reports. We've been involved getting dirt on our fingernails, walking out, getting down, getting, you know, learning sort of how trim works and figuring out, you know, production cycles, and leading the way on things like accountants do, which is about valuation for biological assets. And we're actually going to talk about this at this conference. We've been involved right from day one. And the commitment comes right from our board. We have a board member who's our national leader, one of my partners, the senior partner, Glenn Fraser. Many of you know him out of Toronto. He's going to be here later this afternoon. Right down to the over 25 team members that are going to be here over the next 2 days. Okay? And it spans the collective junior staff to the seniority of our team. And for BC, those 25 team members span everywhere from Fort St. John into the Okanagan, through the Lower Mainland, and up and down Vancouver Island. So some of the hot spots for those of us who know BC cannabis culture, where this industry lives and flourishes. So with that, enough about me and about us. I want to say thank you for coming. Thank you, Neal and Cannabis, for putting on a great event. I think we'll get to learn a lot from each other. We'll share a lot of great ideas. And at the end of it, I hope the interested onlookers will be partners and friends. Thank you. Have a great conference.
So I want to now introduce someone that I've grown to know, like, and admire, Neal Dixon. Neal's got one of those career arcs that you look and say, put a dent in the universe. Big in the music business. Started off as a promoter, formed an independent music label. His walls are decorated with gold awards. A lot of Canadian artists owe their success to this guy. A while back, he formed Canadian Music Week because he wanted to make sure Canada wasn't an afterthought in the music scene. It's one of the most extraordinary conferences I've ever been part of every year, and a lot of it is to do with this man. I asked Neal, why BC? Why put on a conference in Vancouver? And he said, you know, this is the hub and the epicenter of cannabis. This is a market that's been years ahead of everyone else. This is a market that's already fostered entrepreneurship, unleashed creativity, put a lot of magic. So let's take this market and all it offers and bring what we can offer in terms of using our network to attract capitalist investment, and let's make a conference worth having. Ladies and gentlemen, Neal Dixon.
Thank you, and good morning. Good morning, Vancouver. Finally, we're here. Been talking about this for 2 years. And welcome to the city's first Cannabis Conference and Expo. Marijuana was normalized here before it was legalized everywhere, so this event was meant to be. Ironically, the place that gave us legal BC bud is ground zero for the clash between a resilient black market and government-approved cannabis. As someone said last night at the party, it's like you're bringing coals to Newcastle. Vancouverites were the first adopters of every kind of cannabis product, so there are a lot of people with high expectations, and you are them. Our government, soft and sluggish response to consumer demand here could be a predictor of how things play out in the rest of the country. We'll be talking about this a lot over the next 2 days. We're also here to honor BC's contribution to this historic moment in our culture. Our VP of Programming, Danya Dixon, will speak to 2 new awards that will recognize individuals who have made this moment happen. As well, we're grabbing a hold of the future with our Startup of the Year awards, a pitch contest, first time we've done this, in association with the investment social network Leafwire and Entrepreneur. But mainly we're going to spend a lot of time addressing 2 words. What's next? The list of post-legalization is so long, issues are so long that it can literally fill this conference. Thought leadership is at an early stage in the game, and it's paramount, and we've brought 3 extraordinary thought leaders to the conference. Montel Williams, the former talk show host, has become an advocate for managing pain with marijuana. Chief Corporate Officer of Aurora Cannabis, Battley, who will shed some light today on global expansion. And there is also Vice Lance Krishna, whose series Weedakit got this all started. He's been seen smoking pot with the president of Uruguay and exploring cannabis cultures in the Eastern Congo. We've got a lot to talk about, so that's enough for me. So again, here's our VP of Programming. Danya, could you come up and join me, please?
Thank you, and hello, Vancouver. Who was at our VP kickoff party last night? Raise your hands. Was it a good time? Amazing. We also have a happy hour tonight as well from 5 to 6, so we hope to see you there. We'll get some good networking and business done, so I will see you later tonight. The birthplace of cannabis normalization already feels like home to the Cannabis Conference and Expo. And we believe this first event in Van City is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. These are exciting days in the Canadian industry, and we can't think of a better place to share the excitement than one of the most important cities in the cannabis consuming world. So excited that we're inaugurating 2 new awards to recognize the power of individuals in the cannabis community. Our Cannabis Trailblazer Award is awarded to an individual who has pioneered changes in legislation and attitudes that made cannabis legalization possible, and has been active in ensuring the country's legal embrace of marijuana remains fair and equitable. And it can be said that anyone who grows their own owes a debt to our first trailblazer. She is a lobbyist and writer who gave powerful testimony in a landmark federal case that confirmed the right of Canadians to grow their own medical marijuana. She's a compassion group organizer who helped develop dispensary rights that are in use throughout the country. She is also the founding vice chair of Vancouver's Women Grow, advocating for female cannabis entrepreneurs. One of her last ventures is Groundwork Consulting, a government relations consulting firm dedicated to transitioning existing growers and retailers into a legal framework. The first Cannabis Trailblazer Award goes to Jamie Shaw.
I actually had some of the same moral issues as Peter, although I got the Trailblazer Award, so it felt worse to be taking the stairs, but I did. I hate these things. I really hate these things, because people often mistake them for whether you're a decent human being or whether there's another 100 people that are just as deserving, and there are, particularly in this room. It is very much an honor and very humbling to be recognized as a trailblazer. I would especially like to point out that everybody in this room is now a trailblazer, and I look forward to continue blazing with all of you.
Thank you, Jamie. Our next award is the Cannabis Crusader Award, which recognizes a person within the Canadian cannabis industry who has championed social progress, attaching our sector to society-wide causes. Our inaugural Crusader is one of the most influential voices in Canadian healthcare policy. He's a former legislative assistant to the Canadian Minister of Consumer and Corporate Affairs, in which capacity he helped develop patent protection for innovative pharmaceuticals. And he founded the international consultancy Health Strategy Group. He is the Chief Corporate Officer of Aurora Cannabis and a member of the Board of Directors of Cannabis Canada. Crusader number 1 is Cam Battley.
Thank you very much for this. Actually, it really is a lovely award. It is my understanding that when they use the word Crusader, it's the secular connotation that they're talking about, not the ancient religious one, and I want to assure everybody in this room that I have no plans to conquer the Holy Land. But there is something to conquer, and it's something we need to do together. One of the things I love about these events, about these Cannabis events, is it brings together everybody. It brings together suits like me, and advocates and activists like Jamie, my good friend, and it brings together the growers. It brings together not just the new legal industry, but a little bit of the gray. It brings together all of us who believe in something common that we share and that we need to take to the world. And let's bear that in mind. It's our global responsibility. We Canadians, we're the pioneers in this. In medical cannabis, in consumer legalization, we're the pioneers. It's our job by default, it's our responsibility to take the ethics of what we achieve to the world. And we need to get it right. We need to do things such as removing tax on medical cannabis. And we're going to win that fight. We need to do things like seeing through the amnesty for people convicted or charged with non-violent possession offenses. And a pardon won't do. We need expungement. We need to hit that delete button and make those records go away. And we need to do it not just for Canada, but for the world. We're defining the world, we're leading the world, and we need all hands on deck. We need our unity. We need our unity together more than ever before. Thank you very much.
Another round of applause for Cam and Jamie, please.